Welcome to the second series of the stories behind the songs with Dave Kittle. Back in 1979, Dave began a radio career at CHEZ 106 in Ottawa, which spanned 17 years. He was one of the on-air voices that I grew up listening to, and he introduced me to new music that literally changed my life. His knowledge and passion for music are inspiring, to say the least. And in this 12-part podcast, Dave talks about 8 of his favorite songs and the history of how those songs came to be. So pull up a chair and join us for the stories behind the songs.
But it started a run, which a lot of people now consider the classic Stones period. Yeah. Late 60 to early 70s. Beggar's Banquet, Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers, and Exile on Main Street. All produced by Jimmy Miller. And basically that's what the Stones, largely their legacy is based on those 4 albums.
Wow.
The only other run that I can think of came right after that by Stevie Wonder, who put out Talking Book, Intervisions, Fulfilling His First Finale, and Songs in the Key of Life in a row. 4 of the greatest albums in pop rock history.
Wow.
All in a row. From about 72 to 76.
So here's a question for you. Had Bill Wyman not been fooling around on the piano, had the gardener not woken them up the next morning, because I like to play devil's advocate, right? I have 2 jobs here. One is to say something stupid once in a while, and then the other thing is to actually come up with decent questions. But had those things not happened, and Jumpin' Jack Flash never existed, would they have still continued based on the albums that followed, or do you think that song was that important that it put them into a groove?
I think that if Jumpin' Jack Flash had never existed, I think the Stones still would have bounced back,
right? Okay,
and delivered those 4 classic albums in a row. I think they would have. They knew that they had made a mistake with Satanic. It was not their style.
Right.
They tried an experiment. The Beatles, the same year Sgt. Pepper came out.
Yeah.
And a lot of people compared Satanic Majesty's Request to Sgt. Pepper because it came out literally 3 months,
right, and
4 months
and
after.
That too was quite an experimental album as well.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And a lot of people thought that the Stones were basically just copying the Beatles, which they weren't. They were all being influenced by the same things at the same time. But it was it was a mistake for the band. It was not their style of music.
Right.
That
and
kind of stuff.
They knew
that. They realized they'd made a mistake, and then they started working on the new phase of their career.
Yeah.
With a brand new producer, and Jimmy Miller was a major contributor to their overall sound. Jimmy Miller was a drummer and very rhythmic. So if you listen to a lot of Stones material from those days, Brown Sugar, Sympathy for the Devil, Tumblin' Dice, a lot of stuff like that. It's very rhythmic. A lot of maracas, a lot of percussion in there. Jumpin' Jack Flash is the same thing.
Yeah.
There's maracas in there. There's conga drums in there. So it's very rhythmic.
Yeah.
A lot more rhythmic than the stuff they were doing before. And a lot of that credit has to do with Jimmy Miller. Wow. It's also a very, very often covered song, Jumpin' Jack Flash. It's been done by dozens and dozens of people over the years, including Aretha Franklin. She did a great version of it, which Keith Richards produced and plays on.
Okay.
Johnny Winter did a great cover version of Jumpin' Jack Flash. Peter Frampton did a cover in his early solo career. Leon Russell, Tina Turner did a cover of Jumpin' Jack Flash. A lot of people have covered Jumpin' Jack Flash. Yeah. And it's just a great song, a great riff, just a terrific song.
And it's got great energy.
It has fabulous energy.
Yeah, and I think that's what I love about music. Even when I'm recording my own stuff, there's some things that are, I like, but then there's others, and with a lot of percussion. Once you get a groove going, and I could just sit there and just lose myself in it. Yeah. And so songs like that,
fabulous song, and it brought it was a comeback song for the Stones. It brought them back, and
that's why I asked you though, if it hadn't been done. You said you still think they would have bounced back, but would it have taken them longer? Would it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they were working on the albums Beggar's Banquet at the time. Beggar's Banquet contains some of their greatest songs. Okay. Sympathy for the Devil, Street Fighting Man, Stray Cat Blues. I think they still would have made the same album. It's hard to say, but Jumpin' Jack Flash was a return to form for the Stones, and one of their greatest songs. And not only for the fact that it's a great song, but because it was their comeback song.
Right.
It launched them on the next phase of their career.
Yeah.
Great tune.
Okay. And you had said at the beginning that you thought the Stones were like the greatest band
I still think
ever.
they're the
And why,
greatest
can
band.
you explain why? Why do you think that?
Well, first of all, they've been together for over 50 years.
Yeah. That
says a lot.
That's an achievement. Yeah.
I just think that they've changed over the years from a blues band, a cover band when they started, like every band does. They did mostly cover material. Then they morphed very quickly into a blues band. Mm-hmm. Then they morphed from there into more of a soul band. Once they had been to the United States and absorbed R&B and soul music, they started doing a lot more soul music.
Yeah.
And then they morphed into a rock band with great stuff. And they've just delivered so much, and not only the music, but it's their whole persona, their whole image over the years. I mean, no other band, I think, has had such an interesting career as the Stones. They've been through all kinds of stuff, good stuff and bad stuff, and they've survived it all.
Yeah.
And Keith Richards, to me, is in my opinion, the greatest rock star of all time. I just think that there's no one who has personified being a rock musician quite like Keith Richards.
He's got his own style.
He certainly
There's
does.
No question. I mean, and thank God he's good at that, because you can't understand a thing he's saying when he talks.
Probably not.
No.
But a great guitar player. He's come up with dozens of great riffs over the years. He's had that outlaw image pretty well all his life, and he's lived up to it. And he's just now he's at that stage of his life that you listen to him now, and he's just such an easygoing, doesn't give a care about anything in the world type of guy. Yeah. He laughs about everything because he knows he's survived pretty well everything. He's been on the brink of death, more than once, and has survived it and has bounced back, and now is in probably better shape now than he has been in many years.
Were most of those situations where he was close to death, were they drug related?
Oh, mostly, yeah. Mostly, yeah. He was a serious heroin addict. Serious junkie back in the early 70s when the Stones were in their creative peak, and he was the driving force pretty much musically behind the band, even though he was a junkie. He's been an alcoholic, he's been a junkie, he's been a coke addict, he's been you name it.
He's done more stuff than you.
Hard to believe, eh? But he's just such a great character and a fabulous musician
But I think you encapsulated it pretty cool when you said he survived.
He survived everything.
He's a survivor. Life is, he's kicked life in the ass. Life kicked him back.
He has,
and he's just.
And here he is. Here he is in his mid-70s, and he's just
enjoying life.
He just recently quit drinking.
Wow!
He just recently one of his last remaining vices.
Yeah,
I think he still smokes a lot though, which amazes me because Keith Richards has been a heavy cigarette smoker.
Oh yeah,
since he was in his teens.
Packs and packs.
Yeah, and he's never stopped, and I believe he's still smoking to this day. But I can't believe that he's still surviving after all those years of smoking. And add to that being a heroin addict, an alcoholic, and all the other stuff that he's ingested into his body
resume,
over the years.
Isn't it?
It certainly is.
I think I've done all this, but I'm still around.
Exactly.
I'd hire him. So as a band, now the band has changed with the times and survived and stuff. It's funny. I think about David Bowie, who did some work with Mick, obviously.
They did, They did that Dancing in the Street.
As a single or as a solo artist, as a vocalist mainly, he did the same thing. He changed with the time. He constantly reinvented himself. I love that about him. Just constantly. And of course, this is the thing. He'd still be doing it today if he were around.
Yeah, and that's, to me, that's the mark of an artist.
Yeah,
that's the mark of an artist as opposed to a musician or an actor or. Artists change with the times. They're always experimenting. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work.
That's right.
But they're willing to try. Yeah. They're willing to experiment. And Bowie was the master at that.
Yeah.
And as you say, sometimes it didn't work, but most of the times it did. And he was just a very creative guy. much like John Lennon. I always thought of John Lennon as an artist, and I think John Lennon perceived himself as an artist as well. He changed a lot during his career, and did some stuff that didn't work, but that's what he wanted to do. So what are you going to say, right? Yeah. Sorry, John, you can't do that album. You can't do Sometime in New York City, which was not a very well-received album, but he didn't care. He just did it anyway. I'm doing it. This is my career. If you like it, fine. If you don't, I don't care. But a great song. Love it. Always one of my favorite tunes. Jumpin' Jack Flash by the Rolling Stones. Fantastic tune.
You've been listening to The Stories Behind the Songs with Dave Kittle. Join us again for the next part in this series. Brought to you by Sunholes Music. Download the latest album now at sunholes.com.